Welcome to the second installment of Hip Hop Production Techniques. In the first tutorial I was showing you how to create loops using Recycle. Now in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to load those loops into Reason using the Dr. Octo loop player. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Create at the top, scroll down the list and click on the Dr. Octo loop player, and that will create that device, and you can see it's appeared underneath our mixer. Now there's already a Rex file loaded into it by default, and this is the acoustic drums loop which comes with Reason, but I don't want to use that. I want to load in my own loops that I've created using Recycle. So I'm going to right click on the device and go down to where it says Initialize Patch. So now we have a blank canvas to work with. That Initialize Patch option is available on all of Reason's devices if you would prefer to create a patch from scratch rather than working with a preset patch. So now to load our loops, and this is done over here where it says Select Loop and Load Slot, and here you can see we have 8 slots that we can load into. So I'm going to click Browse Loop and load the intro loop into slot 1. Then I'm going to put the verse arrangement into slot 2. Then the chorus into slot 3. The alternate verse in slot 4, and finally the break. You can also see up here the notes to slot area. These slots correspond with what we've just loaded in down here, but what we can do up here is use this control to alternate between which slot is being used, and that can be automated by right clicking on the control and clicking Edit Automation, and you can see a green outline has appeared around the control. So now I've loaded the Rex files, I'm going to set the tempo of the project, and if you can remember when I did this on the intro loop, Recycle calculated the tempo to be at 96.6 BPM. I'm going to go down here where it says tempo and double click in this box, and I'm just going to round it up to 97, and the sample should be able to function at that tempo. So let's check that. I have the Enable Loop Playback button switched on, which means that when I press spacebar it will play whichever loop is selected. So I'm going to hit spacebar now and we'll check that it loops correctly.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby.
That's fine. Now before I explain any of the other controls and features of the Dr. Octo, I'm just going to point out one of the reasons why I particularly like Reason so much, and that is the visual aesthetic value of it. If you take a look at the controls, there are various auxiliary and EQ controls, as well as the pan, the fader, solo and mute buttons, and all of the controls on the devices. But more specifically, if I press the tab key, it will flip the rack so that we can view the back of the devices, and here we can see the inputs and outputs of all devices. So here is the main output of the Dr. Octo going into channel 1 of the mixer. The master out of the mixer is going into the input of the mastering combinator, and then this is being fed into the audio I/O. So with this feature you are quite easily able to follow the signal flow and the chain of your devices, which I think is very useful. And while we're on that subject, let me show you something I always like to do when using the Dr. Octo. I like to split the left and right output between channel 1 and 2 on the mixer. Then I like to pan channel 1 hard left and channel 2 hard right. This gives the output a louder and wider stereo image. So you heard me play it back in channel 1 a moment ago when I tested the loop played back at the tempo correctly. Now that I've split the channels, let's hear the difference.
Oh, baby.
So you'll notice that A, it's louder, and B, if you have headphones on, you might notice that the stereo image is spread a lot wider. Okay, so next, let me show you some of the controls we have in this area here. All of these controls can be used to manipulate each slice within your loop. So we currently have the intro loop selected, and I can select a slice by either clicking on the slice, or I can use this control where it says slice to scroll between them. I'm going to keep it on slice 1, and I'm going to show you a few examples how you can manipulate that. So the first control after slice is the pitch. So I'm just going to pitch that down, and let's hear the difference.
Oh, baby.
I'm going to pitch it up. Okay. I can also pan that slice.
Oh, baby.
Pan it right.
Oh, baby.
Okay. I can change the level of it, the decay, where it will cut off. I can also reverse the slice. But the quality of the reverse option is all dependent on the nature of the slice itself as to whether it creates a good effect or not. Obviously in this case it doesn't. So I'll turn that back off. Okay, so now to take these slices and write them into the sequencer. I can do this in many ways. The first way I'm going to show you is to, first of all, I'm going to click into the sequencer. I'm going to zoom out a little bit using the G key so I can find the right loop locator. I'm going to stick it there. I'm going to zoom back in using the H key. And there we have a loop of 4 bars. Now if I click on this button, copy loop to track, then you can see it's automatically written our slices in consecutive order in between the 2 loop points. But before I play that back, I need to go back to the device and turn off the loop playback. Otherwise, we will simultaneously hear the playback of the device and the MIDI data which has been written in the sequencer, which will cause phasing issues upon playback. So now that I've turned that off, I can hit play and we'll hear that clean.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby.
Another way that I can insert these MIDI notes is by using the pencil tool and just draw them in like so. And then I can also rearrange those if I choose to. But I don't really want to do that here. There'll be more rearranging done in other parts of the song, as you'll find out later. But I'm just going to keep this loop pretty standard for now. The slices can also be recorded using a MIDI controller and playing it live whilst recording the MIDI data into the software. That's something I'm going to show you in the next tutorial though, using the MPD18 MIDI controller by Akai. Watch the next tutorial to see how I record and rearrange our samples using the MPD MIDI controller.